Welcome everyone to the Australis Shield of the quarter one 2025 first tournament of the calendar year, I suppose. I'm not really sure how we're exactly talking about this in terms of is it the quarter one Australis Shield? I don't know. It's part one of four, I suppose. You could see the little shield on the first little counting down screen. It had four little things on it: quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four. We're in the first one, baby. It's a brand new season, and who are we here with? But someone who did pretty well in the last Play Pokemon season, I will say. It's Z-Tab. Welcome in, Z-Tab. How's it going?
That's good.
Look, Z-Tab, a man who has traveled the world all of a sudden playing Pokemon Go, which is not something that many people have done. It is a children's game, but by gosh, we've been out there. We've been on the front lines playing this kids game, which is pretty sick. But Z-Tab, do you want to spit off who you are for those that may not know you in terms of, the fancy accolades hanging out around your name?
Not sure there's that many fancy outplays. I think I've finished fourth at the Perth regional and seventh this year. And qualified for Worlds last year. Travelled to Hawaii, up 65th. Done a bunch of nine tournaments.
Yeah, look, I mean,
Bit of a
world
spoiler, but I'm one of the players in this one.
That's exactly right. I mean, someone who has absolutely been doing some point work at the local scene as well to grind up those points, head towards that potential Worlds qualification for the 2025 season as well. And it definitely one of the best coming over from Perth. Although I will say, he did run Bastiodon at Worlds. So isn't that just Australian pride incarnate? I mean, we've got that reputation for it being the Australian Pokemon, so it all checks out. But Z-Tub, as you said, you are in this tournament. Do you maybe just want to give a quick explainer as to very background what this tournament is for those that may not be aware?
Yep. So in theory, this is a live tournament at the final of each quarter of the kind of Australia, New Zealand, Oceania season, trying to pick up as many of the local performers and regionals. So,
Your audio is
giant.
just cut off a little bit,
Okay.
but I can still hear you a little bit. It's just a little bit quiet.
Yeah. Right. Move it forward. Hope that helps.
That works.
Yeah. And it's a single elimination knockout that in theory is meant to be live, but the last couple there's been a few issues that have had to be reported and that way. But it's kind of a great tournament to bring together all the local battles around Australia and Oceania to kind of compete in this format.
Yeah, so
Quite a long history.
yeah, it's something that's really, I guess, the big force behind it is Bambos, one of the greatest Australian tournament organisers that are out there. Definitely lucky to have him over New South Wales way, because he makes a lot happen. So much appreciated. One of those things being this tournament. As Etub said, usually this is run live. We are running this a bit, running it back, I suppose. And we've sort of just grabbed some of the footage from the last few rounds, and we'll be playing it for you today. So we can take a little bit of a broad bracket. So anyone can jump into this tournament every 3 months. It's held every quarter. And so anyone can jump in. But if you perform well throughout the season, whether it's in if you perform well in a local, if you perform well in one of the Oceanic regionals, you'll sort of get seeded deeper and deeper into the tournament so that you sort of get to skip a couple of rounds. And so we're going to be jumping straight into the quarterfinals. So we can take a little bit of a look at the the bracket that we've got so far. So we can see that in the quarterfinals, which is this round 4 on the left-hand side, Jay Tisler has been able to take out Fortois to take a place in the semifinals. Clank and Zed, similar. I was going to say Z. I then when it was going to say Z, I said Zed. Clunk and Zed was able to take out Jumothy as well to get that second place in the semifinals. We'll be watching those two battle it out a little bit later. But first up in the bottom half, They Love Jai was defeated by Kaseb Nemo. And Z-Tab, I feel like we might be seeing you straight up.
Yep, and it's a battle against one of my locals and the local community ambassador here as well, Belbass.
Yeah, it's very Perth v Perth vibes, which there's like the Perth battles have been getting knocked out a little bit. They Love Jai falling on the other side of the bracket, but if you have Perth v Perth, you at least guarantee someone from Perth is making it through to the semi-finals. So that's not too bad. But look, we'll just jump straight into things. So we'll sort of see the quarterfinal. We'll then watch both of the semi-finals, and then we'll see the grand finals to see who takes it all out in the end. So let's just take a look at the teams from this quarterfinal round. And Ztab, as someone who was sort of in these battles, do you want to sort of give us a bit of insight into how you built your team in particular?
That was very, very simple. It's basically just my regional team with a slight change on the Cresselia to move it to Moonblast instead of Future Sight because everyone was running double dark, triple dark. And as you can see, I'm coming against a team with zero dark, where Future Sight probably would have been quite handy for that Clodsire and Dunsparce in particular.
Yeah, look, that's a part of the way it goes, I guess. You can't be prepared for everyone, but look, it does make sense to just run it back in terms of your regional team. It did manage you to get top 8 in that particular tournament, which was a long day as well. So we'll see if it does sort of pay off here. But I guess going to Belbass's team, who has a few similar picks, you've both got the Azumarill, the Dunsparce, he's got that Clodsire, Annihilate, Dugong, and the Shadow Jumpluff. What were you sort of thinking, or if you don't remember, what are you thinking now as you sort of look at your team going into their team?
I think the first thing that stood out was the Azumarill on Belbass's side. There's not really anything that kind of hard counters it. There's those two very big weaknesses down the bottom, the Guzzlord, which
Mm-hmm.
if they get stuck on it, it's a world of pain. I think the other ones that kind of stand out is that, at least to me, was that Annihilate, because one of my regional losses was someone Lady Gothard just two shielding through me with Annihilate several times. So I think that was something I was trying to keep an eye out for as well.
Yeah, primed to be a
And
little bit
probably,
scared.
yeah, probably the jump laugh is there that because it has such good matchups and such bad matchups. Talonflame is terrible for it, but Gastrodon is absolutely that
Yeah.
was one that was like very front and center of my mind. And there at my
That definitely makes a lot of sense. And actually, Lalu Loha happens to be in chat, and they've said, based on you using your own regional team build, lazy team builder. Which, you know what? Also, another.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I can't quite remember who Belbass managed to beat to get to this round. Maybe later though I can fill us in on that one.
We'd love to know. We'd love to know. But as is, we'll sort of, I guess, jump into this first battle. Do you remember what you brought in game number 1?
No, I don't, but I'm assuming I might have gone as it was a safe.
Yeah, it makes sense. But look, let's jump into it. And Z-Tab, you can sort of lead us in. Let's take a look at game number 1. Oh, we will only be watching from one phone perspective. This time we will be watching from Z-Tab's perspective. It was just randomly chosen. Some of the recordings were a little bit worse than others, and so we've just sort of picked one to jump on in. So let's jump in. Z-Tab, game number 1. Let's take a look.
Yeah, so Zoomerall jumped off. Obviously got that Talonflame behind it, but it's not that bad a matchup really for the Zoomerall. You win the zeros going straight to casting. It's definitely one that I'm happy to play out if it comes up. I do have a great answer. And as soon as I saw a jump up in the lane, I knew that it's something like it's good. And I did not expect to catch on the Dunsparce. That took me completely off guard when that happened.
Yeah. Makes it a little bit tough. Obviously, you've still got that Talonflame in the back so that you've got something for the jump off a little bit later. So it's not like you need the Azumarill for it, but you make the smart play to sort of bank an Ice Beam on the Azumarill so that if you do happen to match up into that matchup later, you do have something to throw at it. And then at this point, Cresselia just makes sense as the thing to swap into. Obviously, you're not going to Talonflame, but Cresselia is just an absolute defensive sponge to just soak up all of that energy from Dunsparce. And, may as well go for the big nuke as well to just try and bring it down a little bit.
This is one where without Future Sight, I'm not as knowledgeable on how the matchup works. Future Sight Dunsparce, I've played that up so many times. I know exactly how to play it, but
Yeah.
And yeah, the fast switch into the Clodsire, I was not expecting that.
Yeah, there's a lot of bulk that you've got to get through on Belbass's side here. The Clodsire, not necessarily, you don't really have like a hard check running around at this point. They've still got two shields, so you can at least weaken it down with a Grass Knot here. I suppose you'll end up going into the Azumarill to try and do some damage that way and just keep that Talonflame ready for Jumpluff in the back. Handy that you've got an Ice Beam ready to go, I suppose, but kind of hoping that they just burn as much energy here as possible, really.
I think that Dunsparce being preserved is good. It can just completely go through that now. That's why I cut
Yeah, audio is
exactly what
cutting
I
out
wanted
a little bit
to do.
again, but regardless, I guess we do actually know it is open team sheets, so you are sort of aware whether it is the Sludge Bomb or the Stone Edge Clodsire, so at least not going to get hit by a Stone Edge here, but unfortunately you do have to shield up this one before getting the KO.
Yeah, and it's why the rock slide just absolutely destroys Talonflame. So, yeah, I thought I could get out, but I could not.
Yeah. A little bit tough, but look, we've still got a lot of energy on our side. The fly is going to be more than enough to KO the Dunsparce if they wanted to go for it. But look, chances are they don't want Jumpluff to see this Talonflame. But actually, we're just going to let Dunsparce go. I guess they've actually still got two shields, which is pretty crazy. And Clodsire still has a little bit of health in tow, but it looks like we're actually going for a Jumpluff into Talonflame. Not something you see very often.
Yeah, but I think at this health, the aerial ace from the Jumpluff is probably going to be enough to take out Talonflame. It's not the bulkiest of flying types.
Yeah, look, and now this is going to be enough to KO the Talonflame. Azumarill's going to come back in, and you do still have that Ice Beam ready to go, but one Ice Beam is going to meet one Protect Shield, and you'll need to get to another one if you want to try and hit this thing, and I have a feeling that Jumpluff might outpace you.
Yeah, it's not looking good for me.
I mean, it's hard to say it much better. Is the truth. Yeah. They even go for the energy ball just to absolutely make sure that that one's a GG's. But look, Belbass taking that early game one lead, which it is a little bit. I guess, do you feel like team composition was the big factor, or in-game decisions?
No,
Like,
I think the way he moved around the Mons very well was probably what caused me. I think if he'd let it sit and let me take out the Dunsparce and then let two shield Talonflame could have kind of gone through the rest of that team. So the way he pivoted that back and forth was, I think that was the key there. And that was really well done. Now we've battled each other quite a lot at locals, so this next game was, I knew exactly what I was going to lead as soon as I saw the jump off, because I'm just going to go aggressive as I can possibly go and just call that he won't punish it a second time. So you're about to see the Gastrodon lead.
all right, we're going hard in onto alignment time. Let's see Gastrodon work. No Jumpluff. Game number 2, Gastrodon into. It's Dunsparce. It's not Jumpluff, so we're not in too bad of a spot here. We do have a Dunsparce and the Cresselia in the back. So I guess what's the play here on your end, Z-Tub?
So I think it was one neutral swap and then something to kind of hard cover the jumper if it shows up. I think as well, I realized in that last battle there was kind of nowhere for Azumarill to go. So it was kind of like, okay, why am I bringing that? And when I was looking at those teams off the bat before this, I also was making the exact same thought. So it's interesting that I made the same mistake twice in a row.
That's pretty funny. Really just going all in on that Annihilate Pate. But the Dunsparce is going to get a move off here. Luckily, Gastrodon is a little bit bulky, but we don't want to lose all of our health straight away. So let's burn a shield here. We go for the Earth Power, which is, you sort of do put a little bit more pressure onto Dunsparce than they do to you with those charge attacks. So it does sort of make sense that we're actually up a shield now. They are going to outpace you to another one though. So I guess, making the attempted catch into Cresselia, which I like that play. Unfortunately, doesn't make the catch, and now we've got a Clodsire coming in here. So what's the play from here?
Yep. Yep. So as soon as I saw those shields on the non-spot, I knew there had to be no other reason. to shield in that matchup with the Dunsparce because otherwise anything else, happy to let it go down, swap out. So knowing that, then I also think it has to be jump off to kind of punish that, be able to capture that gash.
Yeah, I think
That's the read I'm making here. So I think give it into the Cresselia, and it'll neutrally do Cresselia things and do a bit of damage, take a lot of damage, and then give it the rest of the way.
Yeah, we're not quite at the point where a grass knot is going to KO, but we're absolutely getting towards that sort of realm, I suppose. We're getting into the red. Gastrodon is still hanging out in the back as well, as long as you're much as well as your own Dunsparce. Here comes the Earthquake, which isn't going to quite KO you either, actually. So we're almost getting to the point where okay, unfortunately, they are going to get one more Sludge Bomb through, which is going to be enough to KO here. So I guess just happy to let it go. At this point, you can kind of go either way in a sense, but in comes Gastrodon, and actually the Dunsparce swaps in. It looks like you might have been going for that Body Slam there, but didn't quite get her off.
Just one thing too late.
Yeah, still get the Body Slam
It's
off
interesting
though.
that kind of looks like a CMP there.
No, look, it all kind of works out, I suppose. And then what's in the back is the big question. Does Dunsparce have any play, or are we going to see like an Annihilate disaster is kind of the question. Oh, it's Jump Laugh and Upper Shield. This is looking pretty good for Dunsparce.
Yeah, Dunsparce definitely can handle a jump fluff upper shield, so it's probably a catch is probably the only thing to worry about in this situation.
Yeah, I think happy to sort of no shield as well. You sort of have to make those calls when you're in these scenarios like, oh, are they likely to go for the bait straight up? You also have to be a little bit scared of the potential defense drop that could come in from that energy ball. And we're just throwing the rock slide here straight away, knowing that we're going to get some big damage onto Jumpluff. It's going to be happy days. It's looking a terrible lot like Z-Type is going to tie this thing up 1-1 as long as, Clodside is through all of its energy. So, it's not too close, and you still have a shield. So it was like, well, looking pretty good.
Yeah.
We bring it back.
Yeah. I think I realized at that point, Clodstar was low health, and Rock Slide probably KOs, and if not, it'd bring back the memories of one of our battles at a local where I Rock Slided his Gastrodon twice, and then he drew on my Mandibuzz in return. So,
Well, it can't always go well, can it? But I will say, I think on the audio end, I've actually figured it out after watching that battle. I think it is just a matter of if you speak loud enough, then it comes through pretty well. But yeah, Clunk does ask no rock slide BM question mark question mark question mark. Great questions coming in here. Sometimes you've got the option.
I never BM, never.
Here.
Unless it's someone who's running Bastion and Open Greatly and they don't top left, in which case they're getting a resistance move all day long.
Says the guy who ran Bastion at Worlds.
That's completely different. That's show 6 pick 3.
Oh, I see. Okay, we are in the show 6 realm, but fair enough. We're showing a little bit of respect to our opponents here, so we'll take it. But I guess now that we've sort of got it to 1-1, what are you sort of feeling going to game number 3 as to where we might head from here?
So since Dunsparce was so good for me in those games, I was kind of expecting the Annihilate. I kind of built the team in that aspect. But I also kind of thought that chances are he's going to expect me to bring the Gastrodon again. So if he doesn't see it, he'll think it's in the back. So I've got the Azumarill in the back as well. And I know exactly what's going to happen. And it's going to So it's going to be quite interesting.
All right. Well, Z-Tub knows what happens. I don't know what happens. Most of you guys know what happened. Belbass, if he's out there, he knows what happens. So let's jump into game number 3, 1-1. Take a look at what we see in the leads here. I thought I clicked the button. Turns out I didn't click the button. Now we've clicked the button, though, and we have a Cresselia into a Dunsparce. So not too bad of a start for you, Z-Tub.
So this is where the loss of Future Sight really hurts. You can comfortably 2 Future Sights and Psycho Cut the rest of the way without taking and potentially exit either with a move and not take too much damage. So it's a really good matchup. So Moonblast just doesn't quite do that.
We do have the small chance of getting a debuff, which could always be nice if it does happen to proc, but nothing on move number one. We do get the drill runs coming through as well. At this point, it's a little bit of a war of attrition. Everyone's just doing a little bit of damage to each other, even though it feels like Moonblast feels like it should be a big move because Dunsparce is so bulky. It just doesn't feel like it moves the needle all that much, and so we just have to keep playing it out, see if someone eventually tries to go for a bit of a catch. But it's always a little bit tougher to get a catch when you are in a 3-move versus 2-move scenario.
And I also note he's done the exact same thing this battle that I did the one before and just called, you know what, you're not leading Gastrodon here. I'll go weak to it.
All right. Well, here's the Azu swap, and here comes the jump fluff. So, again, not a great scenario for a Zoom rule, but really not that bad because you have that ability to hit that double super effective Ice Beam, which does so much damage to the jump fluff. Like, it really doesn't put you in too bad a spot. And landing it as well. They've really decided, like, hey, look, I maybe they're predicting a Talonflame in the back even. Just to go like, I don't really need this jump fluff. Let's let it go.
Yes. So when I saw the jump bluff come out, I was like, okay, it's probably not Clodsire in the back because you're afraid of that Gastrodon. So you kind of bring the blood. So I was thinking, then I started thinking, what if it is that Annihilate to punish the Clodsire? So that was front set.
Yep, makes sense. If there's an Annihilate, then Dunsparce could be a disaster of a Pokemon in the back. So bring it out, tank some energy from the jump bluff. In comes the Energy Ball, and we'll see if an Annihilate does pop out here in a second. It is, okay, it's going to be the Dunsparce, which makes me think that it's not the Annihilate. And so I guess what's best case here for our Dunsparce-Cresselia duo?
Yeah, so not this.
All right, they
So
were going hardcore.
I completely yeah. So they completely read that I wouldn't need it a second time, and they also made the correct call. The Azu wasn't the beta. I was trying to make it seem like it was. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but they correctly read that and saved the website. I go into this. I think the Dunsparce it's got those drill runs do super effective damage. So this is not a off matchup. It's a great, and it's already down. Pace so fast.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like, yeah, as you said, we will be able to get to a drill run, off rip here and throwing on good timing. So, doing everything we can to try and get the Dubsky here. The drill run, we will need a lot more than one to actually get this Clodsire down. A second one won't quite be enough. There is a potential to go a bit of a war of, war by committee by throwing in the Cresselia here, get some damage in from Grass Knot. At this point, after the Grass Knot, a drill run would be enough from the Dunsparce to get the KO. The problem is, and what we just have to hope that we don't see, is a Clodsire getting to a move before the Dunsparce is able to get to a drill run, because we aren't quite there yet.
So I've lost count once again, so I'm not sure how many they're at, but it looks like they were only one away.
Yeah, and this is definitely going to be enough to KO the Dunsparce, which means that we are going to see Belbass taking out the 2-1 here against our very own Z-Type, which, I mean, so rude, man. I mean, the guy's on stream and everything. Like, uncool, man. But look, it is what it is. And I think the read makes sense to go like, okay, they aren't going to have Clodsire in the back. I think that makes a lot of sense, because otherwise it's sort of like, yeah, if there's a Gastrodon in my back line, then you've just completely lost this game. But, sometimes, and especially sometimes when you're playing Z-Tab, who is a man that tends to like a little bit of alignment gameplay sometimes, a little bit of a reading his opponent. Sometimes you just have to make the reads right back. And this time it worked out for Belbass.
Yeah, and we've played each other a lot, both in scrims and at locals, and want to learn how each of us plays. So that's definitely a factor in trying to out-mind game each other, I think.
Yeah, and Lalu Loha pointing out that you did get beaten by the same guy in the chat as well. So, glass houses.
Yeah, but one round later, that's an important difference.
Yeah, Lally needed to try and get a bit of a better result to get better seeding to get deeper into the tournament. So they didn't have to get beaten just as early, is the lesson learned. So as we go into the next quarter of Australis Shield, focus up, get ready. Because look, we can actually go back to the bracket, and of course we now have our 4 semi-finalists. We've got Jay Tisler, Clunk NZ, Belbass, and K Seb Nemo. So we are going to sort of just keep the battles rolling. I don't actually quite remember what battles we've got next up. Oh no, we can see here it's actually going to be Clunk NZ versus Jay Tisler. So we are going to jump over to the other side of the bracket and take a look at what is going over yonder.
So this is the defending champion, Jay Tisler, who won the last Australia Shield by beating someone unimportant. Never mind who he beat.
Could be anyone. Could be anyone. Maybe it was Lalu Loha.
Could be. And also Clunk NZ, who's won quite a few Australia Shields. So this is a very stacked semi-final.
Yeah, I think Clunk NZ has won more Australis Shields than anyone else ever. It was just win after win after win after win. I mean, Jay Tisler was sort of a rare breakthrough performance, to try and anything to take down Clunk NZ in the end. Put someone else's name on that board. But as we can see here, they are running very similar teams. Both of them are running 5 of the same Pokemon-ish. There is a shadow difference, but actually 2 shadow differences. We've got Azu Annihilate, Jay Tisler's Shadow. We've got Shadow Drapion on both, Shadow Jumpluff on both, and they've both got Alolan Sandslash, although Jay Tisler's is also Shadow. So he's gone for the 5 Shadow squad, just missing that Shadow Azumarill alongside his Shadow Kanto Marowak, where Clunk, his one other Pokemon, is that Galarian Corsola. So I guess if you had to sort of take one of these teams, Z-Tub, and sort of make it your own, which side are we going for here? Are we going for that Galarian Corsola to be a little bit more advantageous, or just the hard, fast move pressure coming in from that Marowak?
I think the extra bulk on Clunk NZ's team would be my choice. I always tend to prefer slightly bulkier teams because it allows you to get away with making mistakes, basically. You can kind of bulk through things. Whereas if you have those 5 shadow and several of them are very glassy shadows, you have to be very precise with where you put them, where you make your shielding decisions, and basically how you manage that team. So I find it's a lot tougher. It'll be a lot tougher for.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense. And so it really is going to be about trying to, beat this titan of the scene and really maneuver his way around the team. I am sort of looking at these two teams and for one, Marowak is definitely a pretty powerful Pokemon, but there is quite a bit of ability to counter it on a Clunk NZ side. I think you see some teams out there that Marowak can really just steamroll through if you give it enough power, but the Clunk NZ isn't one of those. And really, I think almost the Annihilate is going to be sort of the bigger threat potentially going into Clunk's team. And that kind of cuts both ways. Annihilate is going to be a really powerful Pokemon on both teams. And when you've got 2 Annihilates fighting things out, there's always chance for the slightest little bit of energy advantage or health advantage or shield advantage can really push you so far. So I really have a feeling that these games could come down to the minutia, or it could just come down to some heavy 2 shield fast move pressure, and that just wins the game one of a sudden. Both things incredibly possible on these 2 teams.
Yeah, look, I think the jump off on Clunk's side is probably one that has a bit more of an advantage than the jump off on Jay Tisler's side as well. But only really the Sand Slash and maybe the Drapion that has to worry about. Everything else is possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. It is a little bit of a safer bring, but, does that just mean Jay Tisler is going to lean a little bit more into that Shadow Alolan Sandslash and just hope that can land on anything except that Annihilate? Look, there's going to be some heavy alignment losses possible riding around these things, and I don't think that either of these 2 battlers are necessarily all in on alignment gameplay either, but they've really sort of brought teams that are really just going to be, and maybe that just happens when you've got mirror teams going on with such polarizing Pokemon such as Alolan Sandslash and Jumpluff. We might just have to wait and see sort of who picks what teams and whether from the rip it'll actually tell us who is going to win the games. So Godzilla is predicting the ape lead action going back and forth, and so let's see if he's right. Game number 1, and we're going to be watching from Clunk NZ's perspective, and we have the Corsola into the Annihilate. So one for two.
So that is not a good lead for the Annihilate. So definitely see them get out straight away. And this is also not really a great matchup. Solar can pretty comfortably decide what it is.
Yeah, I've played a lot of this sort of matchup in Go Battle League, and you're really in a position where Corsola is really running the table here. Comfortably puts a little bit of a chip and dip action in, throws throws one Nightshade, brings the Azumarill down to approaching half health, to be honest. And now the opposing Azumarill is going to come in. Look how little the play rough does in comparison when compared to the amount of damage that Corsola did. And so even though Jay Tizzler's Azumarill really had that solid energy advantage, it just isn't enough to sort of swing the matchup back in his favor. And so it's sort of getting to that point where it's really going to come down to, does Jay Tizzler want to burn any shields? Do they want to win this matchup? Or would they actually prefer to let Azumarill go down and potentially bring in the Annihilate to get a little bit of farm? Because Annihilate with energy is a lot better into Corsola without. And actually, it's card swapping in. We're getting a little bit aggressive here. Swapping in before Clunk NZ switch timer is up. So we're trying to really get that energy advantage going.
I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting the Azumarill on that. I think now the Corsola can easily take a Rage Fist, no shield, get a lot of energy on itself.
Yeah, we're sort of when it's unboosted, you just sort of take it comfortably, and you can still pretty much astonish all the way down if you want to burn a shield. But we're just going to throw a Nightshade instead, which works as well. I mean, you're putting that pressure back onto Jay Tizzler, really.
Yeah. And you probably can't come back in with the Azu. Get to see what the third is.
Yeah, the Drapion comes in here, obviously a pretty solid counter to the Galarian Corsola. Crunch does take you, 5 Poison Stings to get to, but even Knuckle Tail at this point is going to do quite a bit of damage to the Corsola. Does end up going for that Crunch though, securing the KO. And at this point, if you're Clunk NZ, you've got a 2-to-1 shield advantage, and so you can actually somewhat comfortably swap into the Alolan Sandslash, recognizing that you may be a little bit slower to get to your drill runs, but you really do have that extra shield that can help you out, and actually calling the Aqua Tail bait as well, which really just puts you in a strong position, and Jay Dizzler tries to make a catch there, doesn't quite work.
Yeah, I think this one is probably all over. I don't think there's much that Jay Tizzler can get out of this situation, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's tough when you have such a bad lead to start off with. Especially with your team like this.
Yeah, it's one that's really tough to come back from. The drill run is going to be, more than enough to KO the Azumarill, and then we only need one more drill run. Actually going for the Ice Punch, we're not even at the drill run yet at this point. We're just comfortably going like, hey, look, we're just going to be doing some damage over here. There's a no shield from Jay Tizzler, but Ice Punch does so much damage on its own that it's like, yeah, just stops tapping, recognizes what's happening, and that is just GG's 1-0. And Clunk NZ going to an early lead to sort of climb back to become the Australis Shield champion. But welcome in, Raiders. So we're running a little bit of an Australis Shield tournament, showing off the best in the Oceanic region. And Clunk NZ, one of our defending champions, is going really hard in with a 1-0 lead. So I guess going into game number 2, Z-Tab, how are you sort of feeling that they might adjust based on what just happened in that first battle?
Well, I'd be tempted to just double down and lead that Annihilate again. What are the odds they see cost that guys?
An attitude that has never failed before.
Yeah, so we may see I think we'd have to see a lead to something a bit more conservative. Potentially that Barrow players try and adjust that also. I come on my side.
Yeah, so you can sort of go either way. Excuse me. Throat a little cooked, but I really do think that we're going to see some similar teams from both ends, to be honest with you. I do think that there's the Pokemon that they've selected really just sort of makes sense. If they want to go for just hard reads, then that's definitely something they can try for, but it can definitely get a little bit risky. And so I guess Jay Tizzler is just going to have to hope as we jump into game number 2 here. Can we get a better lead than an Annihilate into a Galarian Corsola? One way to find out, Z-Tab, and it's going to be the Annihilate on our own into the Drapion on the other side. This is I wouldn't call it a better lead for Jay Tisler.
It's not the worst lead. The Drapion can kind of put pressure, can kind of take shield advantages if they bait successfully and call bait successfully as well, particularly against an ice
Oh,
punch.
we actually get the defense drop coming in here. So here's a swap to Azumarill, a swap to the Galarian Corsola. We've sort of seen this in game number one, and Galarian Corsola definitely in the little bit of the driver's seat here. I do think that Clunk NZ's Annihilate moveset was also pretty interesting. We are running that Ice Punch, which is going to be extra helpful into the potential jump luffs that could be running around on Jay Tisler's side. But, before we get to any possibility of that occurring, we've got a few Nightshades to burn through as we sort of face off against this Azumarill. We saw how much it did before. We can see how much it does again. One more isn't quite enough to get the KO here, but we are really getting to those end game scenarios where the battlers, we're really going to be testing their nerves. Be like, oh, can I get this one last move? Do I need to go for a shield? Do I need to go for an aggressive swap here? It's all going to come down to this next 15 seconds.
So that was actually an undercharge on the Nightshade there, potentially not wanting to win this matchup and give the Drapion farm, instead wanting to kind of lose it, knowing that both of the
Oh, maybe they wanted to undercharge a little bit more because that's kind of crazy.
because both Azumarill and the Annihilate with energy can handle the Drapion. Oh, interesting.
Now, to me, that looked like one of those scenarios where you don't actually pick which one swapped in and you left it too late and it just automatically picked one for you. Because I definitely wouldn't be choosing this Azumarill swap in here. But the Annihilate now coming in gets a shield from that Drapion, which is interesting when we aren't actually running any fighting type charge attacks. But we are going to shield up the Aqua Tail. We want to stick around, do a little bit more work against this Drapion. I mean, Jay Tisler at this point knows that it's an Azumarill in the back, but at this point, now that Drapion is so low, it's not that good into Azumarill. Oh,
So with shields and damage, Annihilate can put in work against the Azumarill, but I think it's it's going to need to use one of those shields right now. So I think then play rough.
yeah,
Very
look.
sure.
At this point, actually, I think Azumarill will be able to tank a move here. We can throw the player off, get rid of that Annihilate, and there is that little bit of Drapion here. So Jay Tisler sort of has like the faintest of hopes here if they can get enough damage across the two Pokemon. This playoff is really going to hurt though, and the fact that Jay Tisler is running those shadows across the board really takes away a lot of bulk, which means that this playoff is more than enough to get the KO on the Annihilate. In comes the Drapion, and this Drapion just needs to do a little bit more. The poison things are adding up, but you need to do a little bit of charge attack damage. Perfect counting coming in from Jay Tisler, making sure that he can get the maximum amount of poison sting damage before throwing the crunch, but it's not enough. And the Ice Beam is going to come in from the Azumarill, get the KO, and give Clunk feels like simple 2-0.
Well, I think that Drapion was very close to winning KO. I think maybe only one poison sting away from being able to crunch and an Aqua Tail, which might have just been enough.
Yeah, I actually, to be honest with you, I
Very
think it would
close.
have been. I think that we were at the point. The margins were so razor thin that it's like, oh, actually, Jay Tisler almost had that. So I think I might have written him off a little bit too early, to be honest with you. But look, in the end, I can just pretend I was right the whole time. It's really easy being in the caster chair.
Yeah, yeah. It's a bit harder when it's your battle.
Sometimes it is. Well, it's a lot easier to predict what's actually going to happen. I can tell you that much for free. But look, Clunk NZ going to be pushing on ahead into the grand finals of the tournament. I do realize now that we have actually played these battles in reverse. And so we're not going to go back to the bracket, because the bracket just spoils what happens next. So we are sort of gonna swap over. Let's actually make it simple. Let's come over to this screen as we sort of go into the other semi-final. Oh wait, we can just go to the unfilled in one, right? We can just go to. We can just go back to this screen, and we can take a look at the other side of the bracket. So Clunk NZ going to be going into his what feels like his millionth grand finals in the Australis Shield, and he's going to be facing off against one of Case of Nemo or Belbass. We've seen one of these teams so far. We haven't yet seen the other, so we'll see what it does end up doing. And let's take a look at them now because Z-Tub, one of these teams is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that Shadow Gyarados is really standing out as an interesting and quite unique pick. I saw someone running it at Worlds, but I haven't really seen it much since then.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that we
I believe
maybe.
you are
Sorry, go
those the
ahead.
scores from this battle or the
Oh, sorry.
the
That
scores
was
are
the that's the same text item from the last one. It's not a spoiler, I promise.
uh,
I just forgot to manually update it. My bad, but it's not a spoiler. Or is it? We'll find out. But yeah, I guess what's in your eyes? How does Shadow Gyarados fit into the current metagame in the Open Great League?
not sure. I have never really thought about it, to be honest. There's not much electric going around other than that charge bug that's on SF Nemo's team. So it's and with Dunsparce being used a lot less other than on Golbass's team now, it's probably a bit safer than it was. But all those Azumarill running around is absolutely a bit of trouble for it.
Makes it a little bit tougher. Case of Nemo in the chat has actually just mentioned that his girlfriend got him that Shadow Gyarados. So I mean, look, we've just passed through Valentine's Day. Maybe the power of love will carry Case of Nemo's Gyarados through to the finish line, even if it isn't necessarily the greatest team possible to be facing. Clearly, he's gotten this far into the tournament with it. And I think one of the other Pokemon that is still of note, and I think it's almost going a little bit under the radar in terms of it feels a little less spicy now, because in the Merida Regionals last weekend, we saw quite a few of these cropping up. And it's that Charger Bug. Now, I feel like Charge Bug has been very low in usage over the last few months. It's been something that, every now and then you'll see someone like Tonton Batus running this thing, winning a regional, crushing what feels like obviously with this Charge Bug gameplay. But I guess sort of similar question to the Gyarados scenario. How do you see Charge Bug fitting into this particular meta where I think at this point Corviknight wasn't eligible to be run?
Yeah, I think it still is pretty good. Like it hasn't been nerfed. It's just things that it was really there to counter have dropped away. So its usage has dropped because of that. So it's still as good as it ever was. Just maybe a few less targets. I think we're going to have to see it every game from SF Nemo this time with a few of the things on Belbass's side, like that Dugong, that are looking very safe otherwise. So I think that's the only thing that can kind of really threaten. So I'd say we're going to see a bit of charge bug.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And so I guess let's jump into things and see if the Charger Bug is indeed going to grace us with its presence in battle number one. Belbass, a team we've seen before, going up against K-Seb. Nemo jumping in, and we have the Dunsparce lead into the Dugong, which, as much as it is some rock damage going into an ice type, it sometimes doesn't feel like it's that hard of a counter.
I think it's still. I'm still pretty happy if I'm the Dugong in this situation. If you get ahead of the debuff as well. So you can force shielding decisions. It's always
Yeah, it becomes a little bit tougher. You
Belbass
can
very happy to see it here.
Yeah, just seeing, taking a look at that back line for sure. This is definitely where you're gonna want your Dunsparce to be placed. Takes the Icy Wind on the chin, and at this point, I'm not sure why we're sort of over farming here. I guess we're just being a little bit extra patient, just in case we do see those swaps coming through. But you don't want to, risk getting hit by another debuff. So Belbass sort of throws before they could come through, which well played on that front.
Yeah, Dunsparce comfortably in CMP, so you are fairly safe to farm up to the CMP, especially. Probably the only thing you need to worry about is the catch, or say the Diggersby or Clodsire.
Yeah, it's a lot of risk throwing sort of on the move because it really does give your opponent a lot of sort of ability to read that you are about to throw that move. But at this point, it is all working out well for Belbass. Gets the KO on the... Oh, like, doesn't get the KO. Dugong barely hangs on. And so we're actually going to see that shield really helped K-Seb get the win here. Clodsire swapping in, and we are going to have to tank a move, likely the Icy Wind debuff, because it is going to help K-Seb Nemo's next Pokemon, but at this point, we've got to fight back. Oh, actually, it swaps into the Clodsire. Belbass swaps into Jumpluff, and Charge Bug comes out, C-Dub.
Yeah, thought it might be there. I think Belbat's potentially making the read that if you're staying in a Dugong versus Dunsparce matchup, you probably don't have that closer, especially that Diggersby in the background. So you're pretty safe to give up a line. There's probably not any hard counters left that closer amongst the
Yeah, look, it's sort of one of those scenarios where it's like, well, you sort of make a read. Turns out the case of Nemo was a little bit ABA weak to that Dunsparce lead, which is obviously a bit of a nightmare scenario if you are Nemo here. But as you said, we were able to sort of use that one shield to get rid of that Dunsparce, so this charge bug becomes a little bit safer because now we can land the X's here, doesn't quite get the KO, and so now both battlers swapping into the Clodsire mirror match because neither of them wanted to give up even more of an energy disadvantage. What's really going to come into play here, Z-Tab, is two things. Number one, the fact that Belbas still holds on to the 2-to-1 shield advantage. And number two, the fact that there is going to be, in the late game of this mirror match, the potential to try and go in for the catch. Both things could come in clutch here, and it's really just going to be about, oh my gosh, and calling the sludge bomb bait. That's thing number three.
Wow, that was a very risky bait, and I think Case has recognized that it's all over once that gets called because I think he's stopped tapping on the other side of this.
Holy smokers, that's a disastrous. I mean, like, I understand it, right? You're in that scenario where you're at the disadvantage. I need to do something to try and get the tempo back in this battle. Obviously, I could wait till late in this matchup and try and get a catch onto Charger Bug, or I could go for it right now. I can get that tempo right now. And look, unfortunately, that is just not how the battle went.
Yeah. I think it's basically what KSEP needed to try and do to come back into it was get some shields with baits to get back ahead on energy. And it's also really, really good for Belbass to recognize that he was going to live an earthquake either way. So, might as well call it. Worst case scenario, you're shielding baits later on. So, yeah, I got him to win.
Yeah, it ended up working out. Case of Nemo in chat has said, I felt I had to go down shields. Even Earthquake Landing didn't save me there. But yeah, it was really in that scenario where you needed to get something going on. And that was sort of you needed to find an off ramp, right? And that was the earliest off ramp to take. Like, this is where I can get my advantage. Went for it. And unfortunately, it was just a dead end straight into a brick wall. And it was a disaster scenario. So it does mean that we're going down 1-0 in the sort of semi-finals here. Belbass versus KZ Nemo. It is best of 3 all the way through this tournament. There's no best of 5 shenanigans, even in the semi-finals, as we saw before. It is just whoever gets to that 2 battles out of 3 will progress. And so, even though I know that Gyarados isn't exactly primed to be in a great position, I still want to see it. I'll be honest with you. I want to believe it could come out, but unfortunately, I really do think that it's more likely that we sort of end up moving away from Pokemon that are maybe 2 times weak to the Dunsparce, in the sense that I don't expect that we're going to see another ABA line that is weak to the Dunsparce. Potentially, we go back into a more simple ABB. You could even, like, Diggersby isn't that bad into the Dunsparce, and to be honest, Diggersby isn't too bad across the team in the grand scheme of things. But I mean, what do you run here?
I think we definitely see the Diggersby come game 2. It's very good for both the Dunsparce and the hot side. It's doing so much work. So I think it'd be way too tempting to bring that. So the question is, does that? But your opponent also knows how tempting it is to bring that. So it's a bit of a mind game of, do they know that I know this? So maybe they bring something super weak to it again, or maybe they try to hard counter it with their whole lineup. So it'll be interesting to see how both play it out.
Yeah, we love a bit of a so I know, so that you know, so that I know, that so you know. And so maybe Annihilate comes out in a hard read. But even like whenever Annihilate is mentioned, it's not even a hard read, because if you read it wrong, you're not in that bad of a spot. Like, you're still able to do something. But look, it does say that Nemo said that Gary came out versus They Love Jai and it worked. So we can at least live in that reality that, he's able to take down one birth battler for sure with Gyarados. Let's see if he can take down another one with Gyarados, at least on the team of 6, if not on the team of 3. Let's jump into game number 2 of the semifinals here with a Dunsparce again into the Clodsire. Okay, let's hope that we've got 2 decent Dunsparce counters in the back. Not that Clodsire is too bad for us.
So this is interesting. So Belbas is going ABA with Bigsby, so potentially going the other way and reading that it's so obvious that he won't bring it. So it's quite interesting. I think Dunsparce and Clodsire are very interesting. It feels like it's good on both sides, so it's always hard to tell how it's going to play out. Who's going to want to keep their shield?
Yeah, it's really going to be again down to those decisions. And here's decision number one. Belbas going for the Protect Shield does call the Earthquake. Not that it's a major call, because you'd be a little bit of a rogue unit to be going for Sludge Bombs here when you are in this Dunsparce matchup, especially so early in the game. But we are going to land another draw run here. And thanks to shielding the Earthquake, we are definitely in the driver's seat on Belbas's side. And so you can sort of comfortably no shield here. And it's really going to be up to Nemo to decide how they want to play this matchup out. Do they want to try and win this matchup, or do they have something in the back that can really thrive with a little bit of energy advantage? They may not have an Annihilate on their side, but even something like a Diggersby, if you sort of make a read that on Belbas's side, that maybe that could work. But it's going to be the Azumarill.
So save the energy and pivot it out into the Azumarill. So I'd have to think that means that Diggersby is not there.
Yeah, I guess Diggersby might be sort of saving its seat for another day, because we're sort of in this spot now where Belbas has the slightest of energy disadvantage, while also holding onto a shield disadvantage, which on paper doesn't sound too good, but having all of that energy on the Dunsparce in the back can really come in clutch later on in this battle. And so it might be a scenario where, even if you imagine a scenario where Nemo's Azumarill is able to KO Belbas's Azumarill, Belbas could instantly swap in that Dunsparce on a basic level and just get a quick KO with its charge attacks. But, obviously games usually don't go that simple. You're really thinking about what is the third Pokemon? When can I potentially aggressive swap in this Dunsparce to get the KO? Do I just want to let this Azumarill go so I can get a little bit of an energy advantage on my own Clodsire in the back? It's really, there's so many different ways we can go here, and it looks like we're actually going to swap into the Clodsire while there's still a decent amount of this battle left to go, and just take the move.
I think recognizing the Clodsire and probably the biggest beat. So Dugong makes sense as well, because it is very strong versus Belbas. But that's why I saved the Dunsparce.
Yeah, the decision to sort of leave Dunsparce with all that energy could really come in handy, especially in this particular scenario. So Clodsire is going to throw the Sludge Bomb just to weaken us down a little bit more. The switch timer isn't up yet, so I feel like Belbas partially would like to maybe even keep Clodsire around if he can. But at this point, we're just going to throw an Earthquake, try and do some big damage onto that Dugong, recognizing that the switch timer is now up if he wants to leave. But at this point, okay, we are going to see the swap out into Azumarill, and maybe hoping that Nemo sort of unleashes all of their energy here, because I think they really do want to put all of their chips onto that Dunsparce if they can. Even taking an Icy Wind over here, which is sort of a risky play, because that just lets Belbas go for the play rough now.
Yeah, with even debuff, I think this should be enough to get rid of the Azumarill.
Oh, it's not quite. We actually even get an extra bubble.
So now I think K-Sep is going to want to farm this Azumarill down. But if Belbas can get a shield here, there's enough. There's a lot of energy on that Dunsparce to sort of become a race to who gets the two first.
Yeah, that's right. It's really, we're sort of in this piece where as well, where there isn't necessarily a lot of, the switch timer isn't up yet. Oh no, the switch timer is up. So there's potential in 3-turn versus 3-turn that some catch shenanigans could take place here. Shielding up the move from the Dugong. Do we go for the move? Do we go for the Clodsire swap? Oh, the timer is actually coming up here. We're throwing the Rock Slide, and we're almost at a spot where we could just throw the move, swap to Clodsire, and it might be timeout strats.
I think this might have been a CMP there.
Oh.
Yeah, it was. But the poison thing will register before the ice, so it'll depend on that ice shard, so it'll depend on how much health is left on that Clodsire.
The time is up. It's down to the HP, and all of a sudden, I think that Clodsire bulk has done it. We'll wait for the you win screen, or you win. Belbas. Look, sometime I think if the game played out with timer, would we have potentially seen an Nemo win there? Or do you think that the fast move pressure would be
I
enough?
think, I think the Clodsire would have gone up there. That that Jupiter was only really one or two points away. I think interestingly that getting the catch would have actually been the lose content because the timer would have come up before you could have landed both rock rock slides and potentially you kind of lose that way.
Yeah, that's very true. And actually really interesting. Like, yeah, if you manage to get that catch throwing your Clodsire away, then all of a sudden you lose the match on the spot, which is kind of crazy. When it's sort of, and I guess that's something that you really need to keep in mind in battles that maybe you don't think about that often is that there is a legitimate lose condition in the timer. And so, as much as almost always, like 95% of your time, 99.5% of the time, you aren't going to see a timeout happening in your battles. And especially not if you're someone like Jay Tisler, who's running 5 shadows on their team. But if you're one of these guys that is running a lot of bulk on their team, you're running the Azumarill, the Dunsparces, Clodsires, Jumpluffs, Dugongs, and when you've got that much bulk, you really do have to consider the fact that, especially when icy winter debuffs are involved, you might have to contend with a little bit of timeout strats and have to be able to manage your resources in a bit of a different way than you might consider otherwise. But it's hard to. It's not like there's an in-game timer that's ticking down the whole time. So I feel like you sort of in the back of your head just need to be aware that it can happen.
It's very easy to lose track and all of a sudden be like, oh, whoops, the timer's come up. And it's too late to do anything about it.
Yeah, which is tough. Nemo in chat, I didn't expect Claude, so the catch on play rough was brutal. Had to play more patient, did it sloppy. He earned the win there 100%. And that's for sure as well. But really well played from both sides. Like, I really did enjoy watching K7 Nemo battle it as well, even if we didn't get to see the Gyarados gameplay actually crop up. But it is what it is. We'll take it all the same. But it does mean that we are going into the grand finals of the Australis Shield for quarter one, which is going to be Clunk NZ versus Belbass. It all comes down to this. We've seen these two battlers fight it through. I've seen Belbass take out, Kaseb Nemo and some other guy. We've watched Clunk NZ take out Jay Tisler as well. Before the stream, taking out Jamathi too. So both battlers sort of on a little bit of a tear here. And so, look, it's all going to come down to which of these two teams. Actually, maybe you can make a prediction. I mean, you might know the result. I'm not sure. But take a look at these two teams that we've seen battle through this tournament. Belbass versus Clunk NZ. And which team would you prefer to be of these two? We've got a Galarian Corsola and an Alolan Sandslash on one with a Shadow Drapion. And then on the other side, we are running that Dugong, the Clodsire, and the Dunsparce for a bit more ground type damage.
That's an interesting one. I think probably Clonk's the one I might be slightly happier with, but they both feel like they've got a safe and very unsafe Pokemon to use. So I think it's a fairly even matchup, and at least both of them have wiped the floor with me lately. So that's a it's clear they're both playing well.
Yeah, they're definitely two battlers that are in form at the moment. And Lalu Loha saying in chat, that last battle was actually an East Coast community ambassador versus West Coast community ambassador. And so apparently Perth has the top CA. But you're forgetting about the fact that Bamboss, who runs the whole tournament, is one of our, East Coast community ambassadors. So isn't he the greatest of them all? Food for thought, food for thought. But regardless, we've got the Clunk NZ versus Belbass matchup. I think if I was Clunk NZ here, I'd really be sort of looking towards the Annihilate and the Galarian Corsola as potential sort of just relatively neutral Pokemon across the board. You have to just be like, Annihilate has the advantage of actually having something it can do up against the normal type Dunsparce, which is the only thing that really just, it's the only thing on Belbass's team that would be a bit of a disaster to actually have to face. Not that Jumpluff is a great matchup for the Galarian Corsola. I know that one can be a little bit neutral to weak for Galarian Corsola, but I really think that it is really going to be Galarian Corsola's time to shine in these battles.
Yeah, I agree. I think either as a lead, a swap, or a closer works in all those situations. And unlike Diggersby, Dunsparce takes a lot of damage from Power Gem, which is a very good move. And it's throwing back non-stab drill runs. So it's not a terrible matchup for the Corsola. If it gets advantage, you can potentially do a bit of damage and pivot out if you need to as well, and come back in with some energy later. So I think that Corsola is looking very strong. It's going to come in basically every battle. I think potentially the Drapion is looking not too bad. There's not really too many hard matchups for it. It's putting a lot of work with Shield versus everything else as well. I think on Belbass side, we've seen him rely a lot on that Dunsparce Quadside combo and work very well for him against him so far. So potentially that'll be one of the things that he does. I think it'll still work quite well in this matchup with probably the Corsola we worry about.
Mm. Yeah, I sort of think again we're in a little bit of a scenario where a little bit of an energy advantage could really take you quite a long way, especially if it's something on like an Annihilate. If you can get a sort of late game farm down from an Annihilate, you might be at the point where it's unstoppable against really any other Pokemon that is showing up on the battlefield. Even an Azumarill doesn't really want to see an Annihilate with energy. It's not the most dominant Pokemon. Like I feel like over the history of Pokemon Go PvP, we've seen a lot of Pokemon that people talk about as like, oh, this Pokemon is incredibly dangerous when it gets a little bit of an energy advantage. Pokemon like Frostlass, I know back in the olden days was someone that got talked about that quite a bit. I think Annihilate, it's certainly true, but it sort of is to a point. You need a fair bit of energy to sort of flip some matchups. Some matchups are a little bit better than others. So it really does depend on how the flow of these battles go. And so I think the best thing we can do is to just jump straight into battle number 1 of the grand finals. Again, this is a best of 3. First to 2 wins takes it all out and gets their name on the Australis shield. Will it be Clunk NZ for the 403rd time, or will Velvas end up scratching his name to be the first one in the 2025 season? Let's find out, Z-Tab, in game number 1 with an Azumarill lead into the Annihilate. Good start for an Azumarill.
Yeah, definitely. It's
Yeah, we've got the Dunsparce coming in now up against that Drapion in a good position here where we can really just throw these hard moves. We've gone from one good matchup to another good matchup, and these super effective drill runs are going to be pretty devastating for Drapion.
yeah, and I think good to get the Dunsparce out of the way before it hits the Annihilate, but you really need switch advantage on Belbass' side because that Annihilate on the Dugong would be very painful.
Yeah, we're kind of ABB weak to that Annihilate, which when you're in these scenarios can be a little bit tough. And as you said, you would love switch advantage here because otherwise you're going to be in it for a world of hurt. And actually, Clunk giving it to him, taking it away, and instead going for this potentially dangerous Annihilate farm down. Obviously, counter, still a decent enough move that we're going to get a lot of energy from with this big farm down of the Dunsparce. And so if Clunk NZ is obviously going to use a Protect Shield here to keep it around a little bit more. And then it's just going to be about what potentially what Clunk has in the back as to how this battle is going to go.
Yeah, I think getting a lot of energy on that Annihilate makes sense, and even taking a move because with energy it can really do a lot
Oh,
versus the Azumarill. But this Corsola is a tricky situation. It has a very good matchup against the Dugong as well with those power gems.
yeah. Dugong's sort of been stranded with nowhere left to go. We're not loving the Corsola matchup. We're not loving the Annihilate matchup. But obviously, you need to save your Azumarill for that Annihilate. So, Dugong, you're getting put out, buddy. And this is where you're going to have to find out what you can do because we're really just going to have to eat Power Gem after Power Gem after Power Gem. And we're not going to love it at all. Has to make some calls. How do I best take down this Galarian Corsola and still have enough juice in the tank to take down that Annihilate? It won't take much. If you have a little bit of energy on your Azumarill, you can take out the Annihilate. You just need to be able to take out the Corsola first, and that's the hard bit.
I think both Belbass and Clunk are recognizing that the Azumarill is the key on Belbass's side, so he's basically just trying to stall the switch clock so he can get into the Annihilate and get some more energy. There's at least I think there's 2 Rage Fists on this thing now.
Yeah, at this point, like you need to know shield the first one. We know that it's only going to do more and more and more damage as the battle goes on. The first one landing here. We're so far away from a player off though. This is a little bit of a danger scenario. Tanking another one because we know that there is going to be a third Rage Fist coming through as well. I mean, we're getting to the point where we're almost going to have to worry about the Astonish damage coming through from the Corsola, and that's a terrible place to be.
And I think the Corsair also has at least a move. Maybe it's close to two Nightshades at this point because there's a lot of energy farmed up before it switched out. So I think this is a tough situation. I think it might actually be at two moves.
Yeah, it makes sense to sort of keep the shield for that Galarian Corsola, recognizing that that move was going to come out. But yeah, actually had the second move already ready to go. And unfortunately, that is going to be a GG on game number one. Clunk taking that first game with really just an incredibly difficult back line to sort of fight through, especially when, I mean, this is exactly what we were sort of saying before the battle is that, you get Annihilate with enough energy. Holy smokers, you're going to be in some trouble, especially when you're running ABB weak to it. I mean, that feels risky.
I think it's tough with that Corsair because you really need to get the Dunsparce lined on it because it does have such a good matchup for most other things besides that and maybe even the Clodstar is a good matchup, but it's probably the next best of the ones remaining.
Yeah, it's we don't really have any like hard check running around that we can sort of just go, aha, obviously I will run this Pokemon and I will end your career on the spot. It is really going to come down to these sort of I guess the in-game decisions. It's really the case of like, hey, I can get a massive Dunsparce farm down with my counter damage from the Annihilate Pier, and I'm going to be so far ahead, you aren't going to be able to catch up with me. And so I do think as we go into game number two here, potentially the final game, if Clunk is... Actually, we've got the win on the wrong side, by the way. That's my bad. Oopsie doopsies. But
It's a
if
disqualification.
sorry, guys. I just felt like giving a win to Belbass, and so my stream, my rules. But as we sort of go into this next battle, where Clunk potentially is at match, or he is at match point, he can win it all from here. I don't expect Belbass to go for two Pokemon that are weak. I kind of expect that you might actually lean into the Jumpluff a little bit more, potentially something that can not only have a little bit of a better time up against that Annihilate, also have a decent-ish time into that Galarian Corsola, decent-ish time into that Azumarill. You've got the mirror match with Jumpluff as well, and really it's just that Alolan Sandslash, and so the risk just becomes, are they really going to bring the Alolan Sandslash? And to be honest with you, I think it might be too much of a risk to bring.
When you are up 1-0, it is a good time to take some very aggressive risks because you know your opponent kind of has to play conservative because if they play aggressive and make a mistake, then it's all done for them. So you could bring that Alolan Sandslash, maybe hide it in the back and try to draw out the Annihilate with the Drapion. But I'd say the Annihilate probably doesn't come with how well the Corsair was. But on Belbatz's side, I think probably you'd have to bring maybe the Dunsparce side jump buff just to
Hmm.
try and make sure you have everything that could do something to it,
Yeah.
not get in that situation where you're just getting swept by it.
Yeah, all three can do something to Corsola, all three can do something to Annihilate, and you've got decent coverage across the rest of the team. It definitely feels like the safe team to run, and as you said, when you're the one on the front foot, you can be a little bit more aggressive. But when you're in this position and you can potentially lose the Australis Shield on this one single battle, sometimes you want to play it a little bit defensive. And so I guess let's find out, is defense the best offense, or are we just going all in hog wild as we go into battle number two of the grand finals, Belbass versus Clunk and Zed. Here we go. Leads being the Azumarill into the Galarian Corsola. Not really where we want to be if we are Belbass, but we do have the Dunsparce Clodsire in the back. So we actually ABA strong into the Annihilate this time, which still makes it a little bit tricky.
And so as I learned the hard way against Clunk, this matchup is worse for Azumarill the more shields you use. So in the zero shields, it's not terrible. You can almost turn it if it's a bad Corsola, it'll be a double KO against a good Azumarill.
Well, I think we might potentially learn something about both of the IVs of this Pokemon then, because neither of them are burning that Protect Shield yet. We've got the, player up ready to go at this point. Azumarill is able to, I wouldn't say comfortably, but at least recognizes that you are going to be able to tank another Nightshade on the chin, so you can throw another player off. And with still no shield, C-Tub.
So with how good the Corsair is, I'd be tempted to shield this and farm down from here. But Clunk happy to take the
Okay. So we're going for a hard bait out of the Annihilate here. Just like, I know that you have it on the team. It was so good in the last battle. You definitely have it here. I know you're swapping it into my Dunsparce, but I'm just going to try and do as much damage with this Dunsparce as possible and hope that, I guess, between my Clodsire and Azumarill in the back, I'll still have this battle.
Yeah, this is a tough situation because that Annihilate is going to ramp up and do a lot of damage to whatever comes in next.
Yeah. We do know that this Annihilate doesn't have any fighting charge attacks. They are running Rage Fist Ice Punch. We saw that a little bit earlier. So, Dunsparce isn't at risk of getting super KO'd, but look at all of that energy that Annihilate has been able to farm up with so much counterage, taking that Dunsparce all the way down. As much as Belbass has a 2-shield advantage here, we're actually swapping into the Clodsire, swapped into the Azumarill to try and catch a move, but unfortunately, it's just given the Annihilate like an extra 4 counters of energy. This is going to be a really tough one, and you almost need to no shield the first one because you know it's going to get worse from here, but we shield anyway.
With the Ice Punch, once boosted, is going to do so much damage, you probably have to respect it. So, oh, twice boosted, as if this is an Ice Punch. No. So going straight Rage Fist at this point.
Look, I guess at this point, you're doing so much damage, it almost doesn't matter which one you're throwing. We at least get a Sludge Bomb off here from the Clodsire. This is going to do it would KO, but still burning that last shield. And now this Annihilate is in a position where, it is just absolutely running the show. Clodsire needs to burn the Protect Shield here to stick around. We're past the point of being able to boost anymore. We're max boost. And still, Clodsire sitting here, at least now going to get the KO on the Annihilate, but now there's another 2 Pokemon to deal with.
The Corsola is very low, so it could probably be farmed down, but I don't think this health is enough to deal with what's back. Oh, they had a move score.
Oh, that is really tough. Look, Clodsire needs to not only hang on from this Nightshade, but then be able to take out a 3rd Pokemon in the back. And look, just for good measure, we even see what it was. It was the Alolan Sandslash. And there's almost even a chance there. Like, if you are able to get an Earthquake potentially onto that A-Slash, you're at least moving the needle a little bit, but not quite enough this time. Ape too strong.
That non-shadow Alolan Sandslash could take it with Link as well. So I think Clunk was in a fairly safe spot there, however they decided about that game. I think they made that call that the Clodsire or the jump up was going to come and block the Sandslash, which worked out quite well.
Yeah, look, you could say it worked out quite well. I think very much a case that, I think that what was really on display in both battles was the sheer force and power of Annihilate, why it is so strong. Look, we were both on the ground floor of when Ape all of a sudden became good. We were at LAIC, we saw monkeys going absolutely wild on the battlefield, and apparently months on, they are still going absolutely ape crazy. You give it enough of an advantage and that thing can just dominate a team so hard that even when you have 2 counters to it, he was running ABA. He had 2 Pokemon that could deal with an Annihilate. When you gave it a full Dunsparce on a platter ready to just eat up and put it into a blender, turn it into pure energy, chug it down, and you could just take on anything. So unfortunately, that was probably, I know it was early on in the game, but I think that was the losing play from Belbass, was the swap into the Dunsparce. Because obviously he knew the Annihilate was going to be around, and so he was sort of baiting it out, but you were baiting it out with the ability to give it a lot of energy. So I don't think it quite ended up working out, unfortunately.
I think potentially seeing that Corsola has zero shields, we can either go the Corsola's way or end up with a double KO where you're kind of coin flipping it. So wanting to try and take some steps to be more proactive. And we saw that proactivity worked out very well for him in the previous 2 games. Not in that situation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't always work out. This time it is absolutely worked out for Clunk and Zed, though, taking a quick 2-0 victory. And, of course, getting his name onto the slightly smaller this year round Australis Shield for 2025. Again, there's going to be one tournament each a quarter, and I believe, as you can sort of see with the logo, the Dual Destiny season, this is all based on the Go Battle League seasons. So we are going to be jumping into the next season just into March. We're sort of expecting that we might get meta details at EUIC potentially, which is only a week away. So hopefully not too long of a wait to figure out what is going to be going on next season. And then we'll sort of be back in 3 months' time. Again, anyone can jump into this tournament from the Oceanic region. So just jump into the Arena Australis server and you will be able to find that this tournament is going to be happening presumably sometime in March, April, May of this year. So, and I think we do have Melbourne Regional that's been announced in mid-May as well. So obviously Bamboss will come out with the exact dates because obviously we'll be dodging, clashing with that particular regional. So maybe it'll be right after, maybe it'll be right before. I would guess right after, but look.
I'd say April's probably a good bet with the Brisbane Regional end of March, the Melbourne Regional in May.
Yeah, it's very possible that we end up doing a little bit early as well. But look, end of the day, we saw some really cracker battles today, Z-Tub. We ended up seeing Clunk NZ grab his, again, I almost wish that I counted it beforehand, but I know that it would be a disgusting number of Australis Shield wins that Clunk already has in his cabinet. I mean, like, if we were sending out medals for this thing, I mean, he would be able to have, like one of those, 12-year-old kids that are in movies of like a really rich family that have been sending him out to all these random sporting events, and it's just full of trophies and medals. That would be Clunk NZ right now. Just absolutely loaded with these puppies. But we'll have to deal with a little digital inscription on a digital shield because we all know how crazy he has been in the Show 6 format, and I'm really hoping that we see him show up at a regional. Maybe you're not hoping so much.
Well, I keep hoping that they put a regional in New Zealand. So there's a lot of good New Zealand battlers who, it's tough when you're having to travel internationally to get any sort of exposure to a regional. So it's a New Zealand regional at some point would be absolutely amazing, and an excuse to go visit New Zealand, which I've
Yeah.
never been able to do.
No, that's exactly my opinion as well. I'm looking for the excuse. Please put a regional in New Zealand or a special event in New Zealand so that I can have an excuse to go because I've never been. I'd love to go. It seems so close. It seems so obvious. So please, ESL, TPCI, whoever we need to plead to, we would really love if you could send some regional love that way. But all of that to say, we've got to do a couple of thank yous here. So a massive thank you, as always, to Bamboss for running the Australis Shield tournament. And also, I know that we weren't able to do this live this time around, but, Bamboss was the one that sort of like mustered up all of the footage as well. So really appreciate him sort of putting that effort in to sort of make this possible, make this stream possible. So, big shout out Bamboss's way. Of course, shout out to everyone that has jumped into this tournament, Z-Tub included, for, not only giving us some battles to watch, but also just making things a little bit exciting, giving us a bit of an opportunity outside of the only 3 regionals we get per year to give that showcase to the Oceanic Battlers. Show that, we deserve a little bit of love. There's some really talented people here, and it would be really awesome to see this sort of stuff a little bit more. And of course, thank you to Z-Tub for coming on and casting, giving a bit of a casting debut. I know the mic was sometimes a little in and out, but I think I'm looking forward to plenty more Z-Tub casting in the future. And the greatest question of all, are we eventually seeing Z-Tub streams?
I don't think so. With how we had to go through 2 laptops and a phone to get to even this, I think I need to invest in a lot more tech to do that.
Look, this is, or we're taking the baby steps. We're taking the baby steps, but I think you did a really good job. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights with us, not only for your own battles, but also through these other battles as well. I think that your knowledge is really helpful to sort of see on display and bring us through these battles. But one last thank you, of course, and that is to everyone that has come in and tuned in and watched, everyone that sort of supported the Oceanic region, watching these battles, seeing how really cracked some of these guys really are, and maybe, hopefully, we get our future regional streamed as well, and you can tune in to the big stage there as well. But until then, I've been PvP Steve, joined by the one and only Z-Tub. Massive shout out to Clunk, and I think that's a wrap on the Australis Shield. So any last words before we head on out, Z-Tub?
No, just thanks to you for giving me this opportunity and for broadcasting these. It's been fantastic watching them. unfortunately, every time I sign up for an Australis Shield, it ends up the live broadcast ends up getting cancelled. So I feel like I've been jinxing it the last few quarters.
No, the next one will work out for sure, guaranteed. I mean, like, I'm gonna hope that I'm very busy organizing whatever regional streams. Maybe, I don't know. Fingers crossed. But I'm sure, really hoping that we can get the next one live because it is obviously much more exciting when this stuff is happening live. So let's just keep our fingers crossed. Hope it all works out. And maybe ZTub, you've just been waiting for the one that's live to sort of get that win live on the stream. So it was
If
tactical.
I'm battling in the next one that's live, I feel like live commentary during the battles is the way to go.
I have always thought about it. I'm like, oh, that could be an interesting way to go. Not something that you see very often, but or at least the sort of stuff that they used to do, where someone would immediately give their thoughts post battle, even if they're not sort of ears out to cast and whatnot. But look, we'll see how it goes. And of course, again, looking forward to the next Australis Shield. But thanks for coming on, ZTub. Thanks for spending the time and eventually sorting out the tech stuff as well. We got there in the end. So thanks, everyone. We'll head over into Will Cujo and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.